Okay, so look, for anyone in finance, especially those of you at the senior level, efficient working capital, right? That's not just some goal. It's like essential. And today, we're going deep on something that's really impacting your bottom line, and that's AI. Specifically, how it's completely changing the game for accounts payable optimization.
Yeah, absolutely. We're cutting through the hype here, you know. This is all about the data, the hard numbers, and luckily there's a ton of recent research both from academics and the industry itself from just the last couple of years, 2023, 2024, that gives us a really clear picture, evidence-based of just how much AI is transforming AP. And we're going to break that all down for you today, make it practical, something you can actually use.
Yeah. Think of this as your AI and AP briefing. We're going to cover everything. How AI is changing how we process invoices, making payment timing way smarter, how you can use it to really beef up your defenses against fraud, and, of course, dynamic discounting. We'll get into all the details.
Okay, so first, just to level set, right? I mean, as senior finance pros, you already know AP is a huge lever for working capital. It impacts everything, your cash flow, liquidity, and of course, those all-important relationships with your suppliers. And the research is pretty clear. AI is having a major impact across all those areas.
So let's get right to it. The research here shows some pretty dramatic numbers. We're seeing invoice processing times getting slashed, like 50 to 80% shorter, thanks to AI. I mean, that's huge, especially if you're dealing with a ton of invoices. Think about what that does for your efficiency, how you allocate resources.
Right, and it's not just about speed. That efficiency, it directly translates into better working capital efficiency overall, like 15 to 25% better. That means you can deploy capital more strategically across your business.
And this is a big one, especially these days, financial risk.
Yeah.
Because studies were showing that with AI, you can actually reduce fraud cases in AP by a significant margin, like 35 to 50%. I mean, that's huge when you consider the damage fraud can do. That kind of security is critical.
And, of course, the bottom line, right, what we're all focused on. We're seeing AI-driven optimizations, things like smart payment timing and dynamic discounting, lead to some pretty impressive annual cash savings, something like 8 to 12%. That's not small potatoes. That's a real boost to your profitability.
Okay, so we're seeing these big, impressive results, but what's actually behind them? What AI techniques are making this happen? And I know machine learning, ML, is a big part of this whole transformation.
Absolutely. And the key with machine learning is how much better it is compared to the old ways of doing things, those traditional statistical models. I mean, think about predicting payment timing, for example. A basic model, something like logistic regression, might get you, what, maybe 75% accuracy. But ML techniques like random forest, that bumps your accuracy way up, sometimes to 88%. And that's especially important in something like fraud detection, where you need to be able to spot those subtle patterns, even the new ones, that indicate something fishy is going on.
And it gets even more precise, right? I mean, you have gradient boosting, XG that can get you up to 92% accuracy when it comes to optimizing your supplier payments. I mean, that level of detail, that's what lets you really manage cash flow effectively.
Right, and then there's dynamic discounting. If you really want to maximize those early payment discounts, you need to be able to predict what your cash savings will be, and that's where neural networks shine, especially LSTM models. They can predict those savings with like 94% accuracy. That's a game changer for making smart decisions about early payments.
And we're not just talking theory here. There are real-world examples of this. McKinsey, they did a big report on AI in finance back in 2023. And they had this case study of a European manufacturing company that managed to cut their invoice processing times by a whopping 60%. And all they did was apply gradient boosting to optimize their payment schedule. That's a real tangible benefit right there.
Yeah, no, it really shows you how powerful these advanced ML techniques can be. But, it's not just about predictions and optimizations. We've got natural language processing, NLP, and that's completely changing the way we handle all those invoices.
Right, because anyone who's ever dealt with AP knows the struggle is real, right? You've got mountains of invoices, all in different formats. It's a nightmare to manage, and you're stuck with manual data entry. And let's be honest, human error, it's inevitable. And that's where NLP comes in. It takes over that data extraction, automates the whole thing.
And the numbers, they don't lie. IBM, AI, and Finance, they had this report come out in 2024, and they found that Fortune 500 companies here in the US, the ones using NLP, were getting something like 95% of their data extraction automated. I mean, that's practically everything. And that led to, get this, a 72% drop in data entry errors.
Yeah, and the speed. Same report, they found that invoice cycle time went from like an average of 14 days all the way down to 3.
Yeah.
That's massive. Think about what that does for your finance operations, how much faster you can move, how much better you could use your resources.
Absolutely. And Deloitte, they did this case study back in 2023, a German pharmaceutical company, and they found that NLP for invoice processing actually led to a 40% drop in late payments. Why? Because the system was catching those discrepancies, those errors, way earlier in the process. No more payment delays, happier suppliers, everybody wins.
Okay, so ML is giving us these really sophisticated predictions, helping us optimize everything, and NLP is making automation and accuracy in invoice management a reality. So what about reinforcement learning, RL? That seems to be where things get really dynamic, right?
Exactly. The real power of RL is that it's adaptive. It's not like those other ML models that are trained on historical data and then that's it. RL systems, they learn, they adjust, they do it all in real time based on what's happening right now. And a big part of that is your cash flow situation. It basically means you can be way more responsive and way smarter about when you pay your suppliers.
So it's not just looking at past data and saying, okay, statistically, this is the best time to pay. It's actually taking your current financial reality into account.
Exactly. And the proof is in the pudding, right? JP Morgan, they did this big AI payables research study in 2024, and they found companies that were using RL-powered AP timing models saw their financing costs drop by 15%, just by being smarter about their payment schedules.
And, we always talk about capturing those early payment discounts,
Hmm.
but so often it just doesn't happen. Manual processes get in the way, rigid payment schedules. But RL, it seems like that could actually change things.
Oh, absolutely. JP Morgan found that companies using their RL model were able to capture 30% more of those early payment discounts. I mean, that's a lot of money being left on the table if you're not doing this.
Okay, so far we've talked a lot about efficiency, how AI can make your AP processes run smoother, save you money. But let's be real, for anyone in senior finance, fraud prevention, that's got to be top of mind.
Yeah, no question. And the numbers, they're scary. PwC, in 2023, they estimated global annual losses from AP fraud at, get this, $4.5 billion. That's a huge risk. And AI, it's proving to be a powerful weapon in this fight.
Yeah, because the research is pretty clear. The old way of doing things, those rules-based systems, they just don't cut it anymore. I mean, they're only about 65% accurate.
Well, that's because the fraudsters, they're getting smarter too, right? They're always coming up with new tricks. But with supervised ML models like random forest, we're seeing much better accuracy, something like 82% in catching fraudulent activity. These models can pick up on complex patterns that the old systems would miss completely.
And it keeps getting better. Unsupervised anomaly detection, that's even more advanced. It can spot unusual patterns without even knowing what specific fraud schemes look like.
Yeah.
And that's key for catching those brand new types of fraud. That gets you up to 90% accuracy.
Yeah. And at the cutting edge, you have adaptive AI, which is based on reinforcement learning. That's where we see the biggest potential, around 95% accuracy in fraud detection. It's constantly learning, constantly adapting to new threats. And that's what you need, especially as fraud gets more and more sophisticated.
And we're seeing this play out in the real world. HSBC, back in 2023, they did this AI risk analysis, and they found that they were able to reduce fraudulent transactions by a full 50%,
Sure.
just by using AI-powered anomaly detection in their AP. That's a huge impact, real money saved.
No question about it. So, we're seeing the benefits of AI and AP all over the world, but adoption, it's not happening at the same pace everywhere. You have different infrastructure, regulations, priorities in different regions.
Right, that's important to keep in mind. So let's break it down by region, starting with North America.
Okay, so in North America, we're seeing really strong adoption of AI in AP, particularly among the big companies. They're really focused on using NLP to automate all those invoices, and they're also getting into some really sophisticated supplier financing algorithms. And it's paying off. Fortune 500 companies, they're reporting an average of 35% lower AP processing costs.
And there are some great examples of how they're using AI to fight fraud here in North America, too.
Oh, yeah. Goldman Sachs, they had a report in 2024, AI in Treasury, and they highlighted this one U.S. tech company that managed to cut their AP fraud losses by a massive 65%, just by using ML-based invoice verification systems. That's impressive.
Now, when we look at Europe, it seems like regulations are playing a bigger role in how they're approaching AI and AP.
Yeah, that's definitely a factor. You have GDPR, PSD2. These are some pretty strict regulations. So in Europe, they're really focusing on using AI for compliance and fraud detection. And it's working. European banks, for example, they're reporting something like a 40% drop in AP fraud thanks to these advanced AI risk models.
But they're not just focusing on risk, right? They're also seeing some real efficiency gains.
Oh, yeah, for sure. BNP Paribas, their AI Payables division, they reported in 2023 that they were able to hit 98% invoice accuracy, and their approval times were 50% faster. And all that was thanks to AI-powered automation. So even with all the regulations, there are still big efficiency benefits to be had.
And then there's Asia. It seems like the big drivers for AI adoption and AP there are all about that rapid economic growth and needing to really optimize working capital.
Yeah, Asia's a hotbed for AI-driven working capital solutions right now. They're really into reinforcement learning for cash flow forecasting and optimizing supplier payments. Studies show that Chinese firms have managed to cut their AP financing costs by an average of 22% by using these AI models.
And we can't forget about e-commerce, which is just exploding in Asia. AI is having big impact there too.
Absolutely. Alibaba, they did a study in 2023 on AI payables in e-commerce, and they found that by using RL to optimize vendor payments, they were able to cut supplier delays by a whopping 40%. So it's not just about internal AP processes, it's about optimizing the whole supply chain.
And then finally, we have Latin America. They seem to be a bit earlier in their AI adoption journey, but still making some good progress.
Yeah, the overall penetration of AI in AP might not be as high as in other regions, but the trend is clear, and automation is definitely picking up speed. They're really focused on AI-powered invoice scanning and fraud prevention, and we're already seeing some good results. Across the board, Latin American companies are reporting about a 35% drop in AP cycle time.
And it's not just the big companies benefiting either. Smaller businesses are getting in on the action too.
Yeah, there was a report in 2024 on Brazilian fintech AP optimization, and they found that small and medium-sized businesses in Brazil were able to save something like $1.2 billion through AI-driven invoice reconciliation tools. So the benefits of AI and AP, they're not just for the big guys.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. Different regions, different priorities, but the bottom line is the same. AI is delivering real, measurable improvements in AP performance.
That's right. And if you want to quantify the impact, we can look at some averages. Invoice automation with NLP, that's giving us about a 65% reduction in processing time, and costs are down about 35%.
And for fraud detection, using machine learning, that's leading to 50% faster detection. And maybe even more importantly, it's estimated that AI is preventing about $5 billion in fraud losses globally.
And then, of course, there's dynamic payment timing with reinforcement learning. That's giving us about a 20% boost in cash flow and cutting financing costs by around 15%. These are some serious financial levers, something every company should be paying attention to.
Okay, so that's where we are now. But what about the future? What's next for AI in accounts payable?
Well, all signs point to even more AI integration. By 2025, it's predicted that around 60% of all corporate AP functions will be using AI in some way. This is not some passing fad, this is the future of finance.
And when it comes to fraud prevention, AI is going to be even more important.
Absolutely. It's estimated that ML-powered fraud prevention in AP will save companies a staggering $15 billion globally in the next few years. That's how crucial this technology is going to be in protecting our financial assets.
And for those of you who are really laser focused on optimizing payment strategies, RL is about to take center stage.
Yeah, they're predicting that RL will be automating around 80% of payable scheduling in the near future. That's huge.
Yeah.
Imagine that level of intelligent automation, that kind of dynamic optimization. It'll free up so many resources and really boost your financial performance.
So to wrap things up, for all of you senior finance professionals out there, the message is clear. The data doesn't lie. AI, it's not some future possibility in AP. It's here, it's now, and it's offering some really significant measurable opportunities to make your operations better.
That's exactly right. We're seeing this fundamental shift happening towards AP processes that are data-driven, automated, and optimized for risk. And the companies that understand these techniques, that get ahead of the curve and implement them strategically, well, they're the ones who are going to have the edge. We're talking about better working capital efficiency, better risk mitigation. It's a competitive advantage you can't ignore.
So the takeaway here, the big one, is that all the evidence points to this. You need to embrace AI if you want to optimize your AP processes. And when you do, you'll see real results. Your working capital will improve, your financial risks will go down.
And look, this isn't just about jumping on the latest technology bandwagon. It's about making smart financial decisions that are going to have a real impact on your company. Understanding and implementing these AI solutions strategically, it's not a nice to have anymore. It's essential if you want to stay ahead of the game, stay competitive in today's business world.
So as you think about all this, you might be wondering how it applies specifically to your industry. Or maybe you want to dive deeper into those AI models themselves. Well, those are all things we can definitely explore more in the future. But for now, thanks for your time. We appreciate you joining us for this deep dive.